Duchess of Alba Cayetana's luxury, quirkiness, and bright personality captivated the globe, creating a legacy that continues to enchant. Her choice to leave her over 3 billion euros in assets to her 6 children and nothing to her third husband, Alfonso Diaz, has stirred debate and conjecture. Cayetana's life was spectacular and controversial, with her extensive art collection, mansions, and royal titles. Her loving but scandalous marriage to Alfonso, a public worker 24 years younger, defied societal standards. Her life was a tapestry of high society drama, generosity, and intense love relationships, making her one of the most exciting and adored Spanish aristocrats. Explore the fantastic and controversial life of Duchess Cayetana of Alba and learn about her unusual choices and lasting influence. Born into luxury. Cayetana de Alba, also known as Maria del Rosario Cayetana Fitzjames Stewart y de Silva, was born on March 28, 1926, in Seville, Spain. She is most often known by her nickname, Cayetana de Alba. The union of Jacobo Fitzjames Stewart y Falco, a Spanish noble and politician, and Maria del Rosario de Silva y Gertebay resulted in the birth of a female child, who was the couple's first and only child with each other. Jimmy Alba, better known by his nickname, served in various governmental capacities, including that of Ambassador of Spain to the United Kingdom and Minister of State. His nickname also knew him. He was known as the 17th Duke of Alba, despite his multiple achievements. By contrast, her mother was a member of the nobility and held the title of Ex Marchioness of San Vicente del Barco. She was also a member of the Catholic Church. To Queen Victoria Eugenia, she had the position of Lady-in-Waiting for a length of time. She served in this capacity for some time. Her mother's premature death. As a result of the fact that Maria del Rosario was diagnosed with tuberculosis, TB, only after a few months after the birth of her daughter, it was said that the happiness would not last for a considerable amount of time. Within the walls of the Liria Palace, she was placed under quarantine to reduce the likelihood that the illness would spread to other family members. Consequently, this led to a decline in the quality of their connection. Despite being a little girl, Cayetana was not allowed to access the area of the palace where Maria del Rosario was being kept captive. If she did approach, her mother would hurl several items at her to prevent her from coming close to her. This horrible memory haunted her for the rest of her life, and it was a constant source of torture for her. A tragic occurrence took place on January 11, 1934, when her mother passed away unexpectedly. As a result, her daughter, who was 8 years old at the time, was left in the care of her husband. Franco takes power. During the coup d'etat that Franco led in 1936, the conditions of Cayetana's family went through a considerable shift. Following their escape to London, the Duke of Alba and his young daughter left the Liria Palace to seek refuge in a more secure location. German militias began bombarding their property, which was then later looted and set ablaze by Republican troops. Finally, their property was destroyed by fire. Because the fire damaged their property, their decision ultimately saved their lives. Although her father was not just a politician, but also a strong supporter of the arts, a piece of his extensive art collection was taken and destroyed. This occurred even though he was a significant supporter of the arts. To his good fortune, he was able to move his most prized paintings to the basement of the Bank of Spain, where they remained safe and sound. The Duke of Alba was appointed to the office of Ambassador of Spain to the United Kingdom after another year had passed since the appointment was made. Moving around. The beginning of World War II in 1939 once again placed the lives of her family in peril, even though her father had flown to London to ensure that they would be protected from harm. Following this, Cayetana spent the years that followed rotating between Spain and the United Kingdom, where she continued to get care from many relatives. This was done to ensure that she had the best possible care. Even though she was brought up in a political atmosphere riddled with instability, the Duchess of Alba was surrounded by the highest levels of European aristocracy throughout her life. This was the case even though she was a royal family member. She had a higher level of schooling as a result. Cayetana could speak Spanish, her mother tongue, and English, French, and German. She was a natural polyglot. In addition, her father went to extraordinary measures to ensure she could master various languages throughout her childhood. Her first love. Cayetana was romantically linked with Pepe Luis Vazquez, a bullfight artist, during the spring of 1943. It was around this time that the romance began. The young girl, who was only 16 years old at the time, had her first love encounter with a man who was 5 years her senior. This was the first time she had the opportunity to experience love. On the other side, there was a person who opposed their relationship, and that was her father. Jimmy Alba was taken aback when he saw his young daughters falling profoundly in love with an older man who was also a bullfighter and not someone of the same aristocratic level as her. Jimmy Alba was a bullfighter himself. Due to this particular reason, he concluded that it would be best to send Cayetana back to London. A unique style. The Duchess of Alba always exuded a feeling of glamour for every occasion, whether attending a high society party, on one of her frequent skiing vacations to Switzerland, or even in the peace of her house. This was true regardless of the setting. Her renowned wedding dress, which she wore for her very first wedding, was designed by Flora Villarreal, a Spanish fashion designer. Villarreal was responsible for creating the outfit. When she was not attending a formal event, the Duchess of Cambridge made the most of the opportunity to wow everyone with her bohemian chic style. She used this opportunity to its fullest potential. One thing that stood out in her ensembles was that she wore bright colors, which gave her an air of brightness and ease. The Duchess of Alba was primarily considered to be an accurate figure within the world of Spanish fashion during her lifetime. Her first marriage. After completing her father's diplomatic mission, the rest of the family flew back to Spain together. Cayetana traveled to Madrid in 1946 to pay a visit to a friend confined in the hospital. The acquaintance was now receiving medical treatment. Luis Martinez de Araujo y Atascos was the son of the Dukes of Sotomayor, and the Marquis of Casa Irojo was the person she encountered when she was inside that location. After a period of courtship that lasted for a few months and acquired approval from the Duke of Alba, the couple announced their engagement on January 28, 1947. It was referred to as the most expensive wedding in the world by the media due to the significant cost of 20 million pesetas in Seville, which is the location where the couple decided to have their wedding ceremony. In their choice to conduct the event there, they spared no cost in their preparations. Cayetana was relatively young then. She was just 21 years old. Her link with Franco's regime. Once Francisco Franco took control in Spain in 1939, the nation went through one of the most challenging periods in its modern history, which lasted from 1969 to 1975. Several challenges characterized this period. By imposing authoritarian authority, the Francoist dictatorship, which adhered to the fascist ideology, aimed to restore social order. This was accomplished via the use of the Nazi philosophy. During the 36 years that Franco was in power, it is believed that he was responsible for the deaths of at least 150,000 people. Because the family of the Duchess of Alba was a part of the Spanish aristocracy, it was unavoidable that they would have some form of interaction with the dictator. Nevertheless, even though they had a cordial relationship with Franco, they never failed to maintain a substantial distance from him and the policies that he enacted. Her father's death. The year 1953 was the year when Jimmy Alba was diagnosed with lung cancer. As a result of the worsening of his condition, when he was traveling in Switzerland, he was sent to a medical institution that was situated in the city of Lausanne. Following the conclusion that she had exhausted all her alternatives, Cayetana decided to go to Switzerland to say goodbye to her father. It was on December 24th of the same year that the Duke of Alba passed away. The remains of the dead were brought back to their own country and deposited in the family pantheon in Loeches after their homecoming. The transfer to the renovated Liria Palace, which was the location where the now Duchess of Alba had spent her youth, Cayetana and her husband concluded that it would be necessary to migrate. A few years later, a decision was made about this matter. a large family. The newlyweds were blessed with their first child, a boy named Carlos Juan Fitzjames Stewart y Martinez de Araujo, on October 2, 1948. In 1950, after 2 years, they became parents to their second son, Alfonso Martinez de Araujo. Once they were married, the newlyweds did not waste time expanding their family. On the occasion of Jacobo's birth in 1954, the family saw the development of yet another generation. Fernando was born in 1959, taking the family unit to a new level of expansion. This occurred 5 years later. The last two members, Cayetano and Eugenia, joined the group in the 1960s. Cayetano joined in 1963, while Eugenia joined in 1968. The group was expanded to include both of these persons. The unfortunate reality is that their happiness would soon be overshadowed by a calamity that would irrevocably change the path that their lives would take from that point on. Pablo Picassos Muse. Since Jimmy Alba was an incredible collector, Cayetana was exposed to art at a very young age. This was because Jimmy Alba was a collector. According to what was said before, Cayetana has inherited her father's passion for painting. Furthermore, she established relationships with several of the most significant artists in the world due to her travels within the aristocratic group that she was a representative of. Picasso wanted to paint me like the Maha, but my husband said no. I would have liked it. I was curious, but I didn't dare go so far because of the criticism at the time. Unfortunately, we will never know how Picasso would have painted the Duchess of Alba, but I am fascinated by it. As a result, she was taken aback when she received an unexpected proposition from the one responsible for creating the Cubist movement. An unexpected death. During their marriage, Cayetana and Luis spent most of their time together, traveling to different locations across the globe. The two individuals, who had great power in the European aristocracy, allocated their time between London, Paris, and Geneva, to name just a few of the sites they visited. These are just a few of the cities they visited on their voyage. They were so busy that they were given the term nobility without rest due to their packed agenda that took them all over the globe. When the spouse of the Duchess of Alba was diagnosed with leukemia in 1969, everything around them was turned upside down. It was a completely different day. Unfortunately, Luis was unable to recover from his illness and passed away in the year 1972. Unexpectedly, Cayetana's husband passed away, which threw her life into chaos and caused her circumstances to become even more chaotic. She was just 46 years old and was responsible for caring for 6 children as a mother. The alleged infidelity. Cayetana spent considerable time polishing her dance abilities while attending classes taught by Pastora Imperio and Enrique El Cojo. As someone passionate about flamenco, she devoted a significant amount of effort to honing her talents. As a result of this specific set of circumstances, she was presented with Antonio Ordonez, a flamenco dancer with whom she had a great connection. On the other hand, after a few years had gone, all that was supposed to be the truth about the relationship would at long last be exposed. Not only did the dancer claim that she had a love relationship with the Duchess of Alba, but she also claimed that she was the mother of their 4th child together. This was according to the dancer. She also said that Ordonez sent her flowers to the hotel, which angered Luis greatly. Cayetana, on the other hand, expressed her disagreement with all that was stated in her memoirs and conceded that it was nothing more than flirtation. A new love. After suffering the death of her marriage, the Duchess of Alba began a series of amorous encounters with various men, including the singer Stuart Granger, one of the men involved. However, she chose not to dedicate herself to a romantic partnership until she came into contact with Jesus Aguirre y Ortiz de Zarate. A former priest and theologian, Jesus also served as the Director General of Music and Dance under the Ministry of Culture. He maintained this post for almost a decade. Within this position, he carried out his responsibilities. 1978 was the year that the couple announced that they would be married. The same year, they celebrated their love with a modest wedding ceremony at the Liria Palace. Only a handful of their closest relatives were there for the event. Together, they had a second marriage, which was a dramatic contrast to her first wedding, which had been referred to as the most expensive wedding in the world. Together, they had a second marriage. Troubled relationship with her children. Even though they were deeply in love with one another, the pair struggled to overcome obstacles. The bond between Jesus and Cayetana's children did not seem to be a healthy one during the duration of their time together. When the Duchess of Alba was confronted with the tragedy of losing her first marriage, she recommitted herself to the concept of love. In the former priest, she discovered a new friend with whom she would spend the rest of her life. On the contrary, her offspring referred to the 23 years that she was married to Jesus as a nightmare, which undoubtedly resulted in the Duchess experiencing a wide range of headaches. He was unable to empathize with the children of his new wife, who had just lost their father, even though he had a higher level of spirituality than the children of his new wife. Setting a world record. As a result of the extraordinary life that the Duchess of Alba has lived, she has been accepted into the Guinness World Records as the person who has the most titles of nobility recognized by the legal system and recognized worldwide. The following is a list of 46 titles that Cayetana has held: 5 times as a duchess, 18 times as a marchioness, 20 times as a countess, viscountess, countess duchess, and constables, and 14 times as a grandee of Spain, which is the highest nobiliary distinction that the Kingdom of Spain can make available to its citizens. Not the other way around, but rather the other way around. Queen Elizabeth II was obligated to pay homage to the Spanish Duchess in line with royal protocol. This was different. Despite this, the Duchess of Alba was the one who attended the rituals that took place at the same time as Her Majesty to pay her respects to her. This action was taken to prevent disrupting the routine that had been established. Her full name. It is safe to say that the full name of the Duchess of Alba did not make matters any more straightforward, as if the fact that she possesses 46 titles wasn't already a challenge in and of itself when it came to presenting herself. Her birth certificate has the following information: Maria del Rosario Paloma Alfonso Victoria Eugenia Fernanda Teresa Francisca de Paula Lourdes Antonio Josefa Fausta Rita Castro Doroteo Santa Esperanza Fitzjames Stewart y de Silva Falco y Gertabay. Yep, this information may be seen on the certificate. While she was attempting to spell out her name, we can only imagine the headache that she must have been experiencing at that time. There will never be another individual in the annals of history with a nickname equivalent to hers. Hers in particular is the only one. This is the case. She was not required to kneel before the Pope. As soon as they enter a church, Christians are supposed to kneel as a sign of respect and consideration for God. This is in line with the conventions followed by the Catholic Church. It is generally agreed that the Pope, who is also considered the Vicar of Christ and the successor of the Apostle Peter, is the most crucial individual in the Catholic Church. When one has the opportunity to see the Pope in person, there is a very particular protocol that each individual must adhere to. To properly welcome the Pope, one must first make a brief bow and then tilt their head so that it is at the same level as his hand. On the other hand, the Duchess of Alba was exempt from the need to kneel before the Supreme Pontiff whenever she visited the Vatican. This was because of the dignity that was given to her by her 46 titles, and she was exempt from this requirement. Fear of aging and endless plastic surgeries. Throughout her life, the Duchess of Alba was known for her youthful appearance and positive attitude. Although she never lost her vigor on the inside, the passage of time began to show itself in her physical look. This was even though she never lost herself. Many cosmetic treatments were performed on Cayetana as part of her attempts to counteract the ravages of aging. The result was a notable modification of her face, which was the outcome of these surgeries. Her fear of becoming older led to her mishandling the surgeon's knife, which was a very unfortunate turn of events. During the last years of the Duchess's life, we saw the aesthetic transformations brought about by cosmetic surgery to the point where she was no longer identifiable. The man of her life. It is impossible to resist arriving at one conclusion when we investigate who the actual man was in her life. Cayetana Alba's father, Jimmy Alba, was the sort of masculine figure with the most influence on her whole growth. Even though the Duchess had a lot of men during her life, including her 3 husbands, Luis, Jesus, and Alfonso, none of them could surpass the close relationship that she had with her father. When Cayetana was a very little child, her mother passed away, and she was left in the care of her father at this challenging time. Her father took care of her and committed to provide her with the best education that he could afford to provide for her. Along with the unconditional love he exhibited to his daughter, he also shared his excitement for the arts with her. In addition, he provided his daughter with artistic opportunities. Flamenco lover. Throughout the last several decades, the Duchess of Alba has been acknowledged as one of the most significant patrons of flamenco musical performances. In addition, she used her castles as venues for events regularly and secretly contributed to organizations associated with flamenco. She started taking classes very young and has always had a passion for dancing, whether in a private or public environment. Despite the passage of time, she did not show any signs of diminishing love for Andalusian dance. While in Seville for her wedding to Alfonso Diaz, the Duchess of Alba celebrated with those who had come to show their support. The wedding was held in the city of Seville. The fact that she was 84 years old did not prevent her from demonstrating that she could still do flamenco dances in the same manner that she had always done. Her vast inheritance. It has been reported by Forbes magazine that the fortune of the House of Alba is believed to be around 3 billion euros. This sum of money includes properties such as palaces and castles, stocks, lands, and works of art. In the aftermath of the passing of the Duchess of Alba, her fortune, which amounted to 1 billion euros, was distributed among her 6 children, resulting in them obtaining more than 100 million euros. In contrast, her eldest son, Carlos Fitz-James Stewart, oversaw the Casa de Alba Foundation. This was in addition to her enormous list of noble titles. Her siblings disagreed with her choice, and they expressed their disapproval. Her death. As a result of the fact that she had pneumonia as a consequence of gastroenteritis, Cayetana had to be admitted to the hospital. After she had been in the clinic for a few days, her daughters chose to remove her from the facility and bring her back to her home so that she could spend her last days in peace. This was done so that she could have a peaceful passing away. The Duchess passed away abruptly and unexpectedly on November 20th, 2014, when she was staying at the Palace of Las Dueñas, which is situated in the city of Seville. During the funeral ceremony, which took place in the Cathedral of Seville, her husband, Alfonso Diaz, and her 6 children and 9 grandchildren were there and paid their appropriate tributes. Similarly, a few members of the Spanish aristocracy made their way to the spot to bid farewell to the Duchess. At the funeral, Cardinal Carlos Amigo Virgilio, who was present, described Cayetana as noble by inheritance and noble, very noble at heart. Cayetana was a member of the Catholic Church. The strange way she was buried. In line with her unorthodox way of life, she decided to be buried in an utterly unique manner. Her body was dissected into 203 pieces, and these pieces were then distributed among all of her properties. This was done to honor her uncommon choices. A lot of palaces, castles, and agricultural estates are featured in the comprehensive list. In a statement, the Casa de Alba declared how she was laid to rest. She, always rebellious and generous, would not have settled for less. She loved Spain more than anyone else. Now it will be possible to cross the country from north to south without stopping to step on estates where the Duchess is buried. This is a beautiful approach to immortalize Cayetana's passion for her country after she has passed away.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon